What's up? It's Robert Fitton, and lately I've been getting really into a lot about Australia. It all started when Paramount Plus started with Australian Survivor. Yeah, the Survivor reality show. I started watching the Australian version of that. It was absolutely much better than the American version. I was so enthralled with it. I kept watching like one season, immediately started the next season, got halfway through it, and then Paramount Plus just pulled it. Like no warning, no nothing. This is going to expire soon. Just gone. Yet another reason to always have physical media. Also started watching Australian Big Brother, but beyond just ridiculous reality shows, I started like learning about Australia and all the different parts of it. And because people just refer to like a band from Australia. Well, it's a country. It's an entire continent actually. So there's different places, different cultures, different things going on, and so it was really cool to take like the last month and a half and just immerse myself in Australia. And so I thought I'd make a video about some of the great music that I either rediscovered, knew all along and loved, or actually heard for the first time. Let's start at the very beginning. What we'll do is I'll start in Brisbane, Queensland up here, work your way down to New South Wales. We'll go to like the Sydney area. We'll go across to Perth, Western Australia, and then we'll even try out the Northern Territory too. Probably have to break this into two parts because you can't do an entire country or continent with one video with music. That doesn't really do it justice. It'll end up being 40 minutes long. Nobody will watch it after the first 10 minutes. You know how it is. We'll start off with the Saints. God, one of my favorite punk rock bands of all time, the Saints. Pretty much started punk rock, actually, right there in Brisbane, Australia. I'm Stranded, the big song from these guys that kicked it off. It's part of like the Australian National History Registry. They got this little punk rock single in there. So cool. These guys were so early. They don't have the punk rock look. And it's said that kind of hurt them later on, that they didn't adapt to the whole pierced, safety pin in the ear and anarchy symbol and spiked hair and all that kind of stuff. Pants that are like sewn together at the leg, so you got to hop around. Yeah, they weren't into that, but they have a great, especially debut CD here. I didn't have the $85 to get the original Australian album, so I still love my CD that I've had all these years that has like a complete other album on here, pretty much of bonus tracks and EP and whatever. They do a remake of Wild About You from the Missing Links, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Up next, the Screaming Tribesmen. They're not really screaming, and they're not really sounding like tribesmen. It's basically kind of like a lo-fi kind of pop punk thing going on, real kind of almost lush in some places. The way I discovered them was on this Halloween sampler CD they brought to the radio station in their song In Love with a Vampire. So they've got their kind of gothy kind of thing going on, but the Screaming Tribesmen kind of made me think of like and they are not like that at all. A little bit of an earlier kind of Blink 182 sound almost from the Screaming Tribesmen. Also from Brisbane, which I found out is Brisbane's more like a blue collar area, like a working class area. So a lot of these great like punk rock, down and dirty, straightforward rock and roll bands coming from Brisbane. A lot of great beaches there too. It's kind of like I've heard it described like what Florida is to the U.S., Brisbane is to Australia. I'm not sure what they mean by that, but that's what it is. How about that one band, the Savage, Savage, it's like Savage, oh yeah, Savage Garden. They're from Brisbane as well. They had that one song about, I want to stay with you on a mountain, I want to stay with you in the sea, I want to stay like this forever, till the sun falls down on me. Remember that? Yeah, it didn't really sound like that, but they had some really light fare, light rock from Savage Garden. One of these guys is named Darren. That's what I know about them. And I Knew I Loved You was a song, Truly Madly. They had that one where the guy talks really fast about a super sugar cola or something like that. What is that? I don't know what that is, but ooh, I want you. And yeah, that's Savage Garden. There's always that one band from like it's like, who comes from the same places like Def Leppard and Judas Priest, like ABC comes from there or something in England. There's always that one band that kind of slips in. The blue collar people, their kids got to go somewhere too. So the Savage Garden coming from Brisbane. And we got one more from Brisbane, and that is Powderfinger. These guys more of a 90s thing going on. Of course, probably named after the Neil Young song Powderfinger, a band I was not familiar with at all, but they kind of have that, 90s kind of grungeous sound, but not too hard. Australian rock music tends to sound a little more clean and a little less affected than some of the American rock. Like in the 80s, all those like drum machine effects and whatever, you don't hear a lot of that. In the 90s, a lot of the, vocoderized vocals and the down-tuned guitars and stuff like that. You don't hear a lot of that either. It's pretty much kind of straightforward, but it does. Powderfinger especially has that 90s sound. Other places in Brisbane, other than Brisbane, in Queensland, include where the Bee Gees are from. Now, we've all heard of the Bee Gees. They actually came from England originally, but then moved to Australia as children, and their career started with all those early, those 60s songs, the ballads, and, you don't know what it's like to love someone, but let's face it, we all love these Bee Gees, don't we? Yes, we do. Even the people that say they hate disco, and they hate staying, you put on Staying Alive, something off the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, the whole place gets lit, and those people doing this thing and having a great time that, supposedly hate the Bee Gees. Everybody loves the Bee Gees, just some people just don't want to admit it, that's all. But yeah, what can you say about these guys, man? They're supreme musicians, very talented, not only songwriters, but producers as well. They gave the gift to America by teaming up with Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton and giving us Islands in the Stream. So, multi-talented Bee Gees from Crib Island. Also from Caboolture, which is, I believe, in Queensland as well, near Brisbane, is Mr. Keith Urban. First time I think I've ever shown a Keith Urban product on here. This is the CD for Golden Road. Used to play him when I was on country radio. Keith Urban originally in a band called The Ranch. But yeah, obviously became a huge star, American country star there, and went on to do American Idol. Was it American Idol or The Voice? One of those two, I don't know. He was a judge telling other people how to do it. All kinds of country hit after another, after another, after another. So, Tonight I Want to Cry is the big crossover ballad that actually got played on adult contemporary radio. But yeah, Keith Urban, also another fine musician from Queensland. Actually, he was born in New Zealand. So we move away from Queensland. Now we're headed down south to New South Wales, where you find the huge city of Sydney, which in 1965 gave us the Missing Links, a great punk rock band that influenced so many people. I do not have the vinyl for this. I don't even have a CD of this. From everything I've heard, the vinyl reissues of this are not very good. And of course, the original going for about, $1,200 or something like that. So really, let's get on with the Missing Links reissues, please. The quality ones. Maybe put a bonus thing in there. Make it all colorful and pretty. But yeah, the Missing Links, I featured these guys on my 1965 countdown of the best albums of the year that I did, if you want a little more info on them. But just great punk rock from 1965. I mean, that's going to be killer. It is great garage stuff. You've got the Wild About You song I was talking about that's later redone by the Saints. You've got, Mama Keep Your Big Mouth Shut. Lots of attitude with these guys. And like I said, 1965, so way early on, and they are the Missing Links. Check that out if you can. Probably want to stream that. It's a lot cheaper. We go from the Missing Links to the Easy Beats, also from 66, this one. And this is, of course, their big hit, Friday on My Mind, is the one that crossed over to United States. That becomes a kind of a trend, too. You'll notice that a lot of these Australian bands have one song that made it across and made it a big hit, and then for whatever reason, never followed it up with another crossover song. So, but plenty of tunes in Australia, and these guys are another one you got to check out. They offer so much more than just Friday on My Mind. Great garage rock from these guys. They do the original version of Good Times. It was later done by Jimmy Barnes and Michael Hutchence on the Lost Boys soundtrack. They've got great cover tunes, and they were one of the most popular kind of like just rock out bands of the mid-60s in Australia. Definitely deserved a bigger spotlight in the United States, but they unfortunately never got that. But they do have some members that had some siblings that got the big spotlight. George Young and Harry Vanda from the Easy Beats basically are the ones that got the band ACDC started. George, Young, I mean the brother of Angus and Malcolm from ACDC. And what in the world can you say about this band? I mean, why? I'm not going to go way into ACDC. There's Highway to Hell back there. Of course, a huge mega decade history of hard rock. This is how you do it. I'm like I said, not going to go into a big thing. We all know ACDC. Maybe I'll make an ACDC video later on or something like that. But I've always loved these guys, especially the early stuff like everybody does with Bon Scott. But yeah, ACDC. I've heard that Australians don't really care for these guys. Like, especially early on back in the day, like these guys, left Australia and then become famous worldwide, and like Australians kind of shunned them after that. I thought that was pretty interesting that like their first tour back, after coming to America, making it big and all over, and then going back to Australia, it's like nobody wanted a ticket. Very, very weird, ACDC not being liked by their own country. Maybe somebody can verify that or not verify that, but that's not even true. ACDC albums, of course, look different in Australia. There's Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. the CD of that. But yeah, if you can get one of those early like High Voltage or TNTs with the kangaroo on the label, yeah, that would be another $1,000, $500 album that you can put in your collection. Now, from ACDC, we go to Rose Tattoo. Now, maybe ACDC is a little too polished sounding, a little too nice sounding. Well, then you want to go for the harder, rougher edge sound of Rose Tattoo there. And I have these CDs scarred for life. I got a couple of their CDs. You need to get some vinyl of these guys. But this is the one that has the song Texas on it. So Rose Tattoo paying tribute to the United States with their song Texas, which features lyrics like, "We can't wait to get to Texas, and we love those big-breasted Texas women, and we want to check out some of that Texas pussy." Yeah, the song actually says that. Why are we always regionalizing vaginal qualities in rock songs? Apparently Ted Nugent, a big fan of the Nashville variety, so big that a band got named after it. These guys love what comes from Texas, or they probably heard about the Texas pussy, and now they're gonna go want to try some of that. So yeah, it's like a marijuana strains. You know, there's different brands all over America. Is it like that in Australia too? Do you have the Sydney pussy and the Melbourne pussy? Anyway, Rose Tattoo. They're gonna get some because they're literally holding each other's hands. But okay. Yeah, I love Rose Tattoo, man. They just belt it out. They don't even care. The lead singer is a little bald guy. Can you imagine him going up to some Texas woman? "Hi, I'm from an Australian punk rock band. I'd like some pussy." Texas women are not going to put up with that. Trust. Just go to Billy Bob's, man. Have a good time. The Hardons are another kind of punkish, popish band from Australia. A little more on the pop side than their name would have you to believe. I thought they'd be a little, well, harder, but they're actually kind of more of like, again, like that Blink-182, earlier than that. Like maybe they helped to influence Blink-182 or something. They got a few great songs though, but that name, I mean, they're not going to get anywhere in America with that name, and they really have kind of a cool, kind of harmonic, nice harmonies and great melodies and stuff like that. It's obviously it's sped up, it's fast, it's got a little bit of rocking going on, obviously, like that's the punk part of the pop punk. But again, like the Screaming Tribesmen, it's not as hard, and definitely Savage Garden, it's not as hard as their name would lead you to believe. But yeah, their guitarist looks like Joe Perry, so that's kind of hard rock. I've discovered there's a lot of huge bands from Sydney, and InXS would definitely be one of those that were huge also in the United States with all kinds of hits. Now, this is an early one from them called Shabu Shaba that had like the song The One Thing. There's the custom label there for you, inner sleeve and all. Oh, no inner sleeve, just a regular thing like that. But yeah, there you go. But most people love their big hits off of these two. You had, man, New Sensation, Devil Inside, Need You Tonight with Mediate on this one, Never Tear Us Apart. On this one, you had What You Need, Listen Like Thieves, Falling Down a Mountain, Kiss the Dirt. This was before this one. But yeah, InXS, huge for years. And I remember seeing those guys, one of the first times I saw them was on the Live Aid thing. Remember Live Aid in 1985? Now, obviously, I was not seeing this live. I was a little kid watching little pieces of it on TV, and of course they show the U.S. part and the England part, and it's all whatever. But there was also an Australian component to that, and InXS and a couple others played, and those were broadcast. Now, it didn't look as huge. It wasn't a big open arena and amphitheater or ball stadium or whatever was going on. It was a smaller club, so it really had this weird, like, it made Australia look like this kind of like, bar-oriented, like little satellite place. It was really cool, and they were like Live Aid Oz, and I didn't realize at the time that Oz was Australia. I didn't understand why the Rick Springfield album was called Living in Oz and all that stuff, but we'll get to that. But yeah, InXS, huge here, and first time I saw them, Live Aid Oz. Midnight Oil they were another one of those bands that are huge in Australia, where they're from, in Sydney especially, but very political, and so the only really thing that we cared about, this is why I'm holding this up, was What Songs Can You Dance To? And of course that's Beds Are Burning. That was their big hit there from Diesel and Dust, and they had all kinds of great albums, and like I said, very political. I remember when this was out, what is this, 87? I think I was a freshman in high school, maybe a sophomore. I remember there were kids, I'm not even making this up or trying to make a joke, there were kids in my class that thought that the lead singer, Peter Garrett, you know who I'm going to say, was the guy from When the Hills Have Eyes. Michael Berryman. They actually were going around saying, no, it's the same guy. No, it really is. he was in that. He's an actor, and now see, I can't find a good picture of him in here, but I'll put it up there. But yeah, yeah, the guy from Midnight Oil is the same guy that was chasing around people in The Hills Have Eyes. Okay, so yeah, that's my Midnight Oil story. Mars Needs Guitars, that's the album I have from the Hoodoo Gurus. This comes from 1985. I just listened to this today for the first time in quite a while, and basic rock and roll. It's non-pretentious, just strapping on the guitar and playing 10 tunes. That's what this is all about. Kind of sounds like a mixture of kind of REM with John Mellencamp with like a bar band. Great stuff here from the Hoodoo Gurus. The thing about these guys is they're more of an album thing. They don't really have any songs that kind of stand out. You know, it just kind of sounds like a band jamming, rocking out, and they're, you know, high quality. But they just don't have any of those killer, like, memorable hooks that just grab you and hold on. So I think that's the reason they probably didn't get more popular than they were. Another band that only had one like quick like rock radio hit here, it kind of came and went, called Return to Paradise, was the Choirboys. They were around in the 80s for a while in Australia. Another one of those great, just straightforward rock bands, kind of like a mixture of like a little bit of the Hooters, a little bit of 38 Special without the southern rock flair, a little bit of I don't know, Phantom Rock or Slick thrown in for good measure. The Choirboys, just a basic great Sydney, Australia rock band, the Choirboys, and the one song that was like I said, a rock radio hit for like a month back in 1987, Return to Paradise. Let's move on with the Church. Church had a few songs that were like a college radio kind of thing here, but Under the Milky Way was their big one. Again, that classic Australian thing of having a big band here with all kinds of hits, or a few hits, and then just having the one that goes to America, and Under the Milky Sky was the one from the Church. Another one of those great like late 80s, early 90s Australian bands. Again, these are all bands from Sydney that we're doing now. But have that great kind of echoey guitar, real clean sound, kind of a far away, distant sound, but a clean sound. There's not a lot of the 80s effects on these songs, like Hoodoo Gurus, Choirboys, the Church. You're not going to get a lot of, like I was saying before, like a lot of drum machine, like a lot of like synth stuff going on, a lot of the echoey, the guitars don't sound like they're trying to be Eddie Van Halen. A lot of the 80s American music, everybody's trying to have that Eddie Van Halen sound. These guys, not like that at all. And so many great Australian bands have that signature kind of sound with that kind of almost like U2-ish kind of sound with them. But definitely it's their own thing. So Divinyls, another great pop group, but a little more on the edge as we enter the early 90s with these guys. Chrissy Amphlett, loved her. Sad to hear when she passed away. That was quite a shock because I wasn't aware of her struggles with like cancer and all of that, so it just came out of the blue for me. But I always loved the Divinyls, and I actually heard these guys before the big, huge song that we all love, I Touch Myself. Was a song called Pleasure and Pain, and I remember, I think it was in the 8th grade when that came on the radio, and the guy played it, and it's talking about whenever you come, don't try to explain. It's just a very, it's almost like a Berlin type song, you know, the group Berlin, where it's all right there on the edge of what you can get away with at that time. And I remember the DJ coming on after it and saying, "Am I going to get fired now for playing that? Huh?" You know, so I heard it like 3 times on the radio. It really caught my ear. And then never heard it again. And then like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 years went by. And all of a sudden there's this group called the Divinyls back, and the I Touch Myself song. And obviously that just took off. Maybe that's a little too edgy. You want your pop a little more clean, a little more light rock. Well, there's Natalie Brulee. She started off on soap operas. She's kind of like one of those actress singers. She had the... what was it, Agnapop cover, the indie band from California, that song Torn, all over light rock radio, and just like all the other Australians, the only hit she had here, she had a couple more, I think, in her homeland, though, but she was most recently on The Mask UK. Yes, there's a United Kingdom version of The Mask, and she was a panda. So that's what Natalie Brulee is up to these days, singing in a large panda outfit, starting her career as a soap opera actress. Speaking of soap operas, let's get back to super popular people like Rick Springfield. He was huge here. He was like a teen idol, I guess, in his homeland there. Well, he's from the Sydney area, I think. I don't think he's actually from Sydney. He's from like the outskirts. But yeah, he had a hit called Speak to the Sky back in the early 70s. That was more like a teen thing, you know, and then he just kind of went away. I don't know if he stayed around in Australia, but in the U.S. he went away for like, I don't know, like 8 years or something like that. And then came out with Jesse's Girl and, you know, Don't Talk to Strangers and Souls and, you know, Love Somebody. Had the Hard to Hold movie. He just blew up. I saw Rick Springfield live in Decatur, Illinois. Decatur is right by Springfield, Illinois. So he was literally, it was a, you know, it was like a street fair type thing. So he's literally playing in the middle of the street, right, with the band and everything. The street's obviously closed. But right above him was a street sign, like the green street signs like we have here in the U.S., where it says the city and then how many miles to get there, City Springfield. So I saw Rick Springfield playing right beneath a Springfield road sign. All right, well, I thought it was cool. Rick Springfield there. What was it? General Hospital, Dr. Noah, paging Dr. Noah. Rick Springfield, huge superstar in Australia and the United States. One of the few that actually got more than one song across. Maybe he's too rocking for you. You just want straightforward Australian pop from Sydney. Well, that's where you need to visit John Paul Young. Love is in the air. It sounds like a Love Boat theme. He was actually the host of Australia's Countdown show, the big music show they have there, for about 13 years or so. So he's more known for being a TV host. But it's funny, you hear his music and he sings just like a TV host. You know, you would love is in the air. He's got a song called I Hate the Music. John Paul Young, everybody. Let's move on to Mental as Anything, another straight down the line pop band. They didn't have any hits on the Hot 100, but they did, strangely enough, have a hit on the US dance charts called You're So Strong, and it went to like number 21. That's all they really did here. Pretty much a straightforward pop band. Now, these guys do have that 80s sound that I was saying a lot of the Australian rock bands don't have an 80s rock sound. For like an American 80s rock sound. These guys have that synthy stuff going on, the typical real light fare, Mental as Anything. Had a bunch of hits in Australia, none in America except the one dance hit. But if you're looking for straightforward pop stuff and you want authentic Sydney Australian style, then look no further than Mental as Anything. Another one of those groups that their name, you would think that's a punk group or something. They've gone mental. And finally, Icehouse, It's All Over You. Electric Blue. You're not going to get more pop than that. But back to the rock, though. What was this about? I don't know, 10 years ago or something? Wolfmother was huge. Whatever happened to those guys? They had the two huge albums, right? They had that huge song Mother, a bunch of great, like, real crunchy guitar riff-driven stuff. And then Greta Van Fleet came along and everybody forgot about Wolfmother. But yeah, Wolfmother also from Sydney as well. One of the ones from the 2010s. That we're talking about, because I'm not wasting my time with like Iggy Azalea and stuff like that. So yeah, Wolfmother, definitely it was great to kind of revisit those guys, because they were one of the only newer bands that I was getting into back in like, you know, 2000, whatever that was. I don't know when that was, 2007 or whatever. But yeah, I hadn't heard them in a while. I guess I put out another couple albums that didn't really do too much. Nobody really talks about them too much in the vinyl community videos. But yeah, Wolfmother, if you haven't heard them in a while, check them out again, man. You might be surprised, especially that debut album. Really crunchy, like I said, the classic rock, you know, hard rock driven stuff with the young guy singing. Better than Greta Van Fleet, I will say. Well, as good as. Let's put it that way. Okay, we're going to move away from Sydney now, but stay in New South Wales and go to Newcastle for the band Silverchair. These guys were huge for a little while here in the U.S. on rock radio for a little while. They were saying that Daniel Johns, the lead singer, was going to be the next Kurt Cobain, because these guys came out right when Kurt Cobain, you know, was, well, let's just say he passed away. And these guys out in 1995. This album actually went double platinum. That's pretty good. They had a couple of follow-up, Israel's Son and Neon Ballroom, Anthem for the Year 2000. That quickly became very, very dated. But Tomorrow from this album was the big one. I remember that was huge here. And, you know, again, with the really young lead singer doing the rock band, that was all talked about. So, yeah, I think Daniel Johns has gone on to have quite the solo career in Australia. But Silverchair just kind of thought of as one of those great 90s alternative rock bands. But, yeah, they are actually from Newcastle, New South Wales in Australia. And so is the band, the Screaming Jets. Not to be confused with Screaming Tribesmen. These are the Screaming Jets. This is the 90s kind of rock band. They're a little bit lighter than a lot of grunge, but they still have those squealing guitars that grunge doesn't have. So it really kind of isn't grunge. They have their own kind of 90s rock sound. They had a big song in Australia called Better, but they never really did do too much here. So if you want to hear some 90s rock with kind of a more of an 80s kind of squealing guitar, but kind of more of a 90s aesthetic and a 90s feel, check out the Screaming Jets from Newcastle, New South Wales. And now we're going to stay in New South Wales, but one last city, and that would be, oh, here's another Silverchair CD, by the way. This one has a bunch of stickers with it. I don't want to brag, but I'll show you my Silverchair stickers. Anyway, the band I'm talking about now is called Grinspoon from Lismore, New South Wales. Kind of a punk pop thing, a little more in the, like I said, like the Blink-182 vein, but a little harder than those guys. And it's funny because they had like 5 singles released from this album in Australia, but the one we played wasn't one of those. We played a song, the first song on here, called Post-Inebriated Anxiety. That was the song where I need some more, I need some more, you know, that kind of thing. They came and went really quickly here. It wasn't a huge hit or anything, but I still have my CD that I played. Post-Inebriated Anxiety from Grinspoon from New South Wales. All right, we are done with New South Wales. That is it. We have still got to move on to like Melbourne. We've got to check out Perth and all those areas. We'll even swing back up around and try out some groups from the Northern Territory. That'll be really interesting. But yeah, too long to make one video, so I had to split it into 2 parts. And I'll have some questions for Australians too and the other ones, and talk about some other things besides music. Like, for instance, like I said, I was watching Big Brother. I was watching Survivor. I've never heard anybody say "Good day, mate." And I've definitely never heard anybody mention anything about shrimp on the Barbie. But you got to remember, growing up in the 80s, Australia was huge in the U.S. You had Crocodile Dundee and Yahoo Serious and all of the music and all that stuff. And it was huge. And then like Cheech Marin comes out with a shrimp on the Barbie commercial or movie to seal the deal. And Outback Steakhouse opened. But yeah, don't go to Australia and say "Good day, mate." I want to know if they really do that there. I haven't heard. You know what I hear a lot? Reckon. I reckon there'll be a part 2. I didn't say the word 2 right. I realize that. But yeah, there'll be a part 2 in like Melbourne, Perth, Northern Territory, all those places. So hopefully you will stick around for that. You may want to subscribe if you haven't, so you don't miss it. If you have subscribed, thank you so much, and thanks for all the great vinyl community videos that have been coming out. Thanks to everybody who appreciated my April Fool's joke video, and thanks again for watching.